Let's begin with the Brisbane Lions, who we know were so close to a premiership this year, preliminary finalists, and they look to have nailed it with Gunston from Hawthorn, the experience, the reliability that he'll bring to that forward line, and Dunkley, that last-minute deal from the Western Bulldogs, just bolstering that midfield and giving Lachie Neale the support he so desperately needs.
So they get in Dunkley, they get in Jack Gunston for pick 35 as compensation. They have the points for Will Ashcroft and Jasper Fletcher. We'll do the numbers there. Even if they're in deficit next year, having given up some second rounders, they could just trade back into it. They lose Dan McStay, but significant upgrades, of course, with Dunkley into maybe a Jared Lyons style player. If they haven't won the trade period, they've gone pretty close.
No, I think this, when you look at their record over the last 4 years, semi-final, preliminary final, semi-final, preliminary final, they weren't looking for a lot. They were looking for a little bit of icing on the cake, and I think they've found it. You've got to have a look at the reasons why they've lost those finals. So in 6 of the last 9 finals, they've lost a contested possession battle. They've been humbled by Melbourne a couple of times in this season in particular. They've been outscored from clearance in 6 of those 9 finals over the last 4 years. So this guy is exactly what they needed. Gunston's an absolute bonus, but he'll have the capability of challenging for a Brownlow medal next year just because the votes have always gone to Lachie Neale because they've been a one-man band. I love this from Chris Fagan and co up north, and in my opinion, they'll start next year as premiership favourites.
And the other aspect in those finals was accuracy. And if Jason Dunstall says that this is the guy I want kicking for my life early in his career in Jack Gunston, then there's something good about this guy in terms of the way that he leads. His leading patterns are straight up. He's inside the 45 degrees all the time, and therefore his accuracy is right on the money.
He's so reliable and so consistent, which perhaps the knock on Eric Hipwood and also Joe Daniher, as talented as they both are, they can be a little bit erratic, both in front of goal and also inconsistent with their output. So having someone like Jack with his leadership, his premiership experience, he just feels like
Eric Hipwood looked better,
adds some strength to them.
Getting up the ground a little bit, Eric Hipwood. So this allows that to happen even more. Daniher and Gunston inside 50. Eric Hipwood floats a little bit more, left leg in. It's a good setup.
Just having Dunkley in there, an extra bona fide midfielder. They don't have to muck around as much now with Rayner and Bailey, manufacturing those midfield minutes. Keep your star power where they are best served for your football club, which is forward of centre. It's a boom. It's a boom for them. They'll be thrilled with what they've done during this off-season.
All right, so when we have a look at the contenders, there's no bigger one than the reigning premiers Geelong, who were magnificent on grand final day, and they've been magnificent in the postseason.
Isaac Smith, the Norm Smith medalist, Andrew Mackie, the MVP of the trade period, Tanner Bruin for pick 18. They secured Ollie Henry. They kept Asava Radigalia. They got in Jack Bowes, who of course had a recommendation from not only Patrick Dangerfield but also Gary Ablett Jr. and the number 7 pick that could see them draft Geelong's Falcons midfielder, Jai Clark. It was just a spectacular windfall on every front.
When you look at the Cats, it's 9 lives in terms of they just consistently just keep standing up, don't they? They fall on their feet, but it's been I think the administration that's done a great job here in shaping the football club. And then obviously having those conversations with the players and the managers around what is being built and the belief that is put there. And now the fact that Joel Selwood's retired, Higgins is no longer, Dalhouse and Narkle's gone. But now you've got a smooth transition for me for Hawkins and Smith and Tui. All of a sudden, these guys can just enjoy the final part of their career. Who knows what they will achieve. And then they step away with the next group coming through. And
great age profile of the guys that they've brought in. As the players Jono mentioned that have retired, they may not be able to go to Mad Monday next year dressed as the golden oldies because, the 3 players they've brought in are at that exact kind of age group that you want.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for a football club to sell opportunity to these types of players coming in with the Tyson Stengel story.
Yes.
Delisted free agent, becomes an All-Australian, kicks 50-plus goals, gets all the opportunities that the coach guaranteed him at the start of the year, through the off-season. You work hard, we'll give you Eddie Betts to ride shotgun and direct you and guide you, and you can be the best version of yourself. Now, we haven't seen the best of Jack Bowes. We haven't seen the best of Tanner Bruin by a long shot. So what can they become in this environment is an exciting sell to those players. It hasn't worked at at their other clubs, but this is massive for Geelong. I mean, they have become the #1 destination in football, not just because of their winning nature and the way they play necessarily, but the lifestyle and the way that Chris Scott's got them humming. They're only there for 3 or 4 hours a day. As soon as you can get out, you get out. You're with your family, or you're looking for that next opportunity in your working life. So I think this is a full club thing. It's not just Chris Scott. It's not just Patrick Dangerfield or Joel Selwood historically. But what a football club! You have to take your hat off to them. Yep.
Everyone's on beautiful farms. They've got the cows wearing premiership medallions. I mean, couldn't get any better. What about the Collingwood Football Club, Ralphie? They were 1 point away from a grand final. They took us all by surprise, 17th to a preliminary final this year. How do you assess the ins and the outs for them?
So it wasn't a fire sale. I think Graham Wright just put the mini Weber on though. Just a little bit of a barbecue there for the salary cap exodus, of course, of Brodie Grundy. They bring in the targeted acquisitions. Billy Frampton, Bobby Hill. They get Tom Mitchell to redress some of their clearance imbalance issues, so how he works in with the likes of Jordan Ngoe. They lose Ollie Henry there. And so clearly there are some issues in terms of players that they've lost. And I don't think anyone really is going to be able to judge the Brodie Grundy situation until well into 2023.
I think this is really transitioning into Craig McRae's list now. So he basically picked up a list that was heavily compromised in terms of salary, and he really couldn't make a lot of decisions last year. So the first decision he makes is to not invest as much in the ruckman, okay, and then get the speed and turnover game going, which they're famous for really this year. I mean, they're unreal. 9 wins out of 10 games decided by 10 points or less. We're probably not going to see that again. But if you're going to have an asset, drive that asset home. I love the acquisition of Bobby Hill. I think that he gets an opportunity in this forward half to play that blistering speed back to goal game, which we see Ginnivan and the like play. And I'm a Dan McStay fan. Maybe I'm against the grain on this. I think one-on-one, his work is really good. He'll get better opportunities in a different leading pattern, in a different way than what he got up north. So this system, I think, will work for Dan McStay more than the Brisbane system did.
Do you think last year was their chance, though, King? You're going from 17th to top 4. I remember back to 2016 where you started to talk about the Bulldogs had something the opposition, the competition couldn't stop. And it seemed like that for Collingwood last year. Now they go into a top 6 draw, so they're going to play the best more often, and they're going to be looked at more closely. So, are you nervous around that side of things, that they fall into that draw now, and it could be a year where they sort of mightn't achieve what they did this year, but it still could be a growth year, don't get me wrong, before they really bounce as a footy club?
Yeah, maybe, but every club starts 0-0, don't they?
Yep.
So Craig McRae's under no illusion that they won't have the shock factor. They're not a surprise, and they can't necessarily be smashed at contested footy, hence Mitchell coming in. They can't be smashed around contest outside of that. But again, we've said this with Michael Voss, Ralphie, and Craig McRae's the same, Sam Mitchell's the same. They've had one pre-season. So give them another opportunity to punch some training hours in and see where it takes them.
Any issue with Craig McRae for the first time in 12 months having to play bad cop? We've seen all the lovely stories and all the great themes, and all of a sudden Brodie Grundy, who was desperate to stay at this football club, gets moved on, even though he did very little wrong. 2 All-Australians, 2 best and fairest. He has 1 injury-interrupted year. Out you go.
I think you're best to be honest. If you're really not investing in that part of the game, then you can't sit there and say, oh, we really like you, you can hang around and ruin our salary cap and take up a position that we don't really want you to play. Be honest, this is what we need to do as a football club. If we can get you a home, we will. And it's come pretty easy.
And that execution was absolutely flawless. They kept him involved in the decision-making, and they certainly didn't have the Ned Gile style still situation where no one knew what was going on.